First of all, I think the first part of your question was the possibility of Israel dragging the United States into overwar. We're already in it, but we're going to only play a defensive role. We're not going to participate in offensive actions against Iran, at least not in the way this conflict is currently configured. We blame Israel for much of what has happened. We don't say that, but our actions speak louder than our words. And when we tell Israel that, if you want to attack Iran, you're on your own. We're not going to be there for you. We mean that, which increases we're hoping that Israel will say, oh, well, since Big Brother's not going to be there with us, we're not going to do it. But Israel may just say, well, we've got the big toy, the nuclear weapon, and we're going to. My concern is if Iran launches a major attack against Israel that results in heavy civilian casualties in Haifa, Tel Aviv, or elsewhere, that Israel will follow through on its promise to destroy Iran's nuclear infrastructure. In order to do that, at least on one of the targets, the Firdos underground enrichment facility, they're going to have to use a nuclear bunker buster. So they will use a nuclear weapon. And that genie's out of the bottle at that point in time. And, I think this doesn't stop until Israel's destroyed with an Islamic bomb. Who delivers that Islamic bomb is another question altogether, but there will be an Islamic bomb. Islam will not tolerate Israel using a nuclear weapon against an Islamic country, even Iran. So I hope the United States can communicate this. What I'm hoping is that we recognize the danger that we're in. That's one of the reasons why I'm excited to talk with Jill Stein, because she's very worried about this aspect in Israel's nuclear weapons. In the past, Israel hasn't signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty or agreed to any inspections. But I think we are looking at a situation right now where Israel is faced with a real threat to its existential survival, and that Israel cannot continue to exist the way that it is currently configured, and that at some point in time, for Israel to be reabsorbed into the family of nations, they're going to have a conversation about their nuclear weapons, especially at this time where it's on the table. Everybody's concerned about the potential use. We can't allow this scenario to play out over time. If Israel avoids using nuclear weapons, then we have to take those nuclear weapons away from Israel. And I think that should be a goal of the United States and the international community going forward. I got 25 seconds. What do I think about Sinwar being the head of Hamas? It's logical, and it's bad for Israel. Israel imprisoned this man for many, many years. He knows Israel. He knows how the Israelis think. He's the mastermind of October 7th. And I think Israel will have met their match in terms of Sinwar.
Sesh in Mumbai. What happens when an ABM successfully intercepts a nuclear-tipped ballistic or cruise missile? Does the missile become a dud, or does the nuclear charge detonate?
A good question. It depends on who built the nuclear device and what safety mechanisms are contained in the device. Are there follow-on, safeties that get activated on the way down, or is the bomb ready to blow up the moment it launches? Nobody wants that. Understand that if I have a nuclear weapon on top of my missile and I launch and I have one of those malfunctions, which happen all the time, the missile spins out of control, and I got a 150 kiloton warhead on top, and it hits and goes boom because I didn't. So there's safeties built in, and how those work are classified, and frankly speaking, I don't understand. But there's safeties built into it. So if you hit it now, let's say that the warhead becomes active on its reentry phase once it's been released to the target, and then it gets hit. It depends on the warhead design. If the warhead design is compromised, what you'll probably get is a fizzle, meaning that the weapon will go off. But for instance, if it's an implosion device, unless all the explosive charges go off at once and you perfectly compress the core so that it then goes critical and blows up. If you blow up one or two of these things, you get an incomplete, you get a fizzle. You don't get the critical mass, it just fizzles. So you get a little puff, and it's going to put a lot of contamination out there, but it's not going to be the big 150 kiloton war. Same thing with a gun design. If you come in and damage the gun design, you're not going to get the efficiency of operation. peanut design. You take out the neutron generating materials, you're going to get a fizzle. It's not going to function. So, and it also depends what your ABM is tipped with. Back in the day, we were using nuclear weapons against nuclear weapons, so you sort of fry them. The bottom line, though, is that you're probably not going to get a full-scale nuclear detonation with modern nuclear weapons, given the safeties that are built into it. But even if you did, if a weapon had been unsafed, ready for operation, the damage that would be done to the warhead is such that you'll probably get a fizzle as opposed to an actual full-scale explosion.
There are reports of Hezbollah moving their military assets and personnel out of Beirut. The reporting now says that they are moving to more secure areas. My belief is that they are showing the world that Israel has no strategic purpose in attacking Beirut. My bet is they will. What are your thoughts on these movements?
Hezbollah is a political party, and they're also a resistance movement that's been preparing to fight Israel for some time now. I'm not saying that they don't have military resources in Beirut. I would be surprised if they maintained strategic military resources in Beirut, because that's not where they need to be. They need to be outside of Beirut in a more secure area. You know, just think about what you're saying for a second. They're moving their resources out of Beirut elsewhere. That's detectable. Clearly somebody detected it, because we're talking about it. In this day and age, if I detect it, I have technology, the Israelis have technology, America has technology to continue to detect it and to follow it to where it's going, and now that becomes a target. I just don't think that Hezbollah is that amateurish. There might be some movement of support units, some command functions that might have existed inside Beirut because of the proximity with the political arm. They might be moving some of the political arm outside of Beirut. But I don't think Hezbollah was. Again, I also don't think that Hezbollah is in the business of turning Beirut into a legitimate military target. I believe that the vast majority of their military resources are stored outside of Beirut in more defensible locations. The last thing Hezbollah would want to do is turn Beirut into a legitimate target and incur the wrath of the Lebanese people when Israel bombed it. It turned out that Hezbollah, in fact, militarized entire civilian neighborhoods. So I think that this story is a little bit overblown, but that's just reading the tea leaves. I just don't see Hezbollah putting strategic resources inside Beirut, only to have to move them in a time of conflict when everybody's looking for them, obviously detected them moving it, and now it opens it up for destruction. I can guarantee you that if Hezbollah is moving long-range precision-guided missiles out of Beirut and it got detected, they're going to be destroyed before they get to where they're going. That's just a guarantee, which tells me that that's not what's happening. So I take this story with a grain of salt.
So Scott, with all the jamming going on in the Middle East, specifically GPS jamming, how the hell is an Iranian ballistic missile still able to find its way to accurately hit its target in Israel? I always found it like kind of be a mystery.
Well, no, it's a good question. I only can speculate because I haven't inspected Iranian missile systems, so I'm not aware. But there are things that can be done. For instance, you can use inertial guidance. The Russians and the Americans were very good at inertial guidance in the days before GPS. Inertial guidance, uses gyroscopes and accelerometers. The missile takes off, and the gyroscope and the accelerometer, detect deviations from the ideal course where it needs to go, and the idea is to guide it in. And if you have good inertial guidance systems, you can get a circular error probability of 50 to 100 meters. They're really good, maybe a little bit bigger. But then what you can do is on the terminal phase, you can use sort of like the equivalent of facial recognition software, where you have a radar map or a photo map of the facility in the memory, and the system, as it comes in, starts scanning, looking for a match, and then it locks in on that match and will come in. And there's no need at that point in time, since that's all internal. There's no need for GPS, and a lot of systems use a blend of that. They'll incorporate GPS with inertial. The ATACMS systems, the HIMARS system, use a blend of GPS and inertial guidance, along with some sort of terminal guide phase. So I believe the Iranian missiles incorporate, this technology or other technologies that are designed to allow their missiles to operate in an environment where the satellite connectivity would be jammed.
Next question is from Abu Abdallah, allegedly, in Jerusalem, Palestine. Due to the psychological and anxiety-provoking pressure that the axis of resistance is putting on Israel, do you think that Israel might launch a preemptive strategic nuclear strike on Iran instead of waiting for the retaliation?
It's a good question. It's one that many people have asked recently. If Israel launches a preemptive strike against Iran, I believe that it will be a strike that's designed to interrupt Iran's ability to launch ballistic missiles against Israel, and it won't incorporate nuclear weapons. That defeats the purpose of the preemptive strike, is to nullify Iran's ability to strike. Israel has said that it will, if Iran strikes civilian targets, that Israel will strike Iran's nuclear infrastructure. And here's where you get the nuclear aspect of targeting, because at least 2 of Iran's nuclear facilities are underground. One of them, Firdos, there's no conventional weapon that will be able to take it out. If you're going to take out the Firdos enrichment site, you will have to use a nuclear bunker busting weapon. And Israel has said that they will take out these facilities if Iran strikes civilian targets. So a preemptive strike is designed to prevent Iran from being able to take out the civilian targets. So I don't think a preemptive strike would incorporate nuclear weapons, but I do believe that a Israeli retaliation against a massive Iranian strike that takes out Haifa, does significant damage in Tel Aviv, etc., will incorporate low yield nuclear weapons, but nuclear weapons nonetheless. And now the genie's out of the bottle, and I think the world comes to an end at that point in time. So yay, there we are. But I don't think the preemptive strike would use nuclear weapons. That would be the retaliatory strike designed to take out the nuclear sites. And then the question is what the United States does in this regard. Are we going to sit back and let this happen? This is insanity, literal insanity. And you had Miller, the spokesperson of the State Department up there. Somebody asked the question, why isn't Iran allowed to defend itself? Didn't Israel attack Iran? Can Iran to defend itself? That's an unhelpful question. Unhelpful question, because of course Iran has a right to retaliate, but the United States doesn't recognize that right. We literally want a situation where Israel can go in and assassinate high-level Hamas leadership figures in Tehran and get away with literal murder. The Iranians have made a decision that that's not the case. And just 22 seconds. Predicting Zionists using tactical nukes in southern Lebanon, not likely at all. Not initially. I mean, look, if Israel's engaged in a war that they're losing, it looks like they're facing existential, extermination.